Party with your host, Dustin Rybka.
Hello and welcome to Sex Party. I'm your host, Dustin Rybka, and this is episode 30. 30 episodes of Sex Party. Wow. I know it's not 50 or 130, it's 30, but listen, we will take any excuse to party on this show. So we're going to celebrate a little bit. I am incredibly grateful, incredibly glad, incredibly honored to have this guest with me for episode 30. Matison Card, someone I've been following for years on social media. She's an actor, a model, a singer-songwriter, a creative, an artist, someone who lives their life way out loud, who's empowered, who's strong. But how did she get there? How did she become the Matison Card she is now? She's someone who was living her life one way through the Instagram lens for everybody to see. And then all of a sudden, everything changed. How can you do what Matison does? What can we learn from her? It's all coming up in this episode. Listen, I'm doing a shot. You can't stop me. I'm doing it. For everybody listening on the audio platforms, Apple, Spotify, I'm doing a shot on the show. If I'm doing a shot at episode 30, can you imagine what I'll do at episode 50? Ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy my conversation with Matison Card.
This week's conversation.
Matison Card, welcome to Sex Party. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
Complicated, basically. That's my answer.
Surviving.
Yeah, definitely surviving. So for the people who don't know who you are, they've never heard your voice, seen your face in the audience. Can you talk a little bit about who you are and what you do, maybe?
Absolutely. I'd love to. So my name's Matison Card. I'm an actor, model, singer-songwriter, dancer. I dabble in making jewelry and different mediums and that kind of art. But yeah, basically just an all-around creative. And I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So one of the big reasons why I was super stoked to get you on the show is because I feel like you're someone who kind of, for lack of a better explanation, sort of lives their life more out loud than most people would. And I think that takes a lot of empowerment, right? It takes a lot of fucking guts and courage, but obviously, or maybe you were just sort of born that way, right? But can you talk a little bit about your decision to just fucking be yourself and who you are and sort of keep pushing on that? Because I think that's a huge piece of what we're going to get into in this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it is pretty natural for me, as well as being a conscious decision. I am an Aries, so I'm pretty fiery and pretty unapologetically loud about what I think. I've also just been through a lot of personal experiences that I realized were not unique to myself. And at one point I was really quiet about it, and it really affected my mental health. And so for me, just being loud and honest about my experiences has helped my personal growth, as well as connected me with people in my community and others who share the same experiences. So I am a pretty loud, opinionated person naturally. However, I at one point made a decision to just be honest about what I was going through and how I felt, and basically just had a big old fuck it moment in where I decided that there was more to gain by being open about what I've been through instead of just kind of quietly suffering on my own. And it's really helped me, and I hope it's helped some of my peers as well.
Yeah, I mean, can you talk about that moment? Because being someone who's followed you for a while, right, and seen whatever's on fucking Instagram and all of those things, I have my sort of what I see, my perception, which we're totally going to get to. But before we do, what was that fuck it moment, right? And when was it? What did it feel like?
Yeah, so I think it was probably after high school when I realized that a lot of the people I was surrounding myself with didn't have the same standards for the people they hung out with. And losing a lot of friendships, being honest about past abusers was kind of that moment for me in realizing that I didn't need these people in my life if they were going to make excuses like, oh, but they're funny. Oh, but they didn't affect me personally. And so I really just decided, hey, like this is my story and I'm not going to let other people's opinions force me into silence. And I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but I do have this tendency to like live out of spite, and I'm very competitive, and I don't want to see people who've wronged myself or others win. And so that fire has sort of inspired me to just stay loud and stay honest, and to not let shitty people, for lack of a better term, to, control the narrative. And, yeah, it's taken a lot, and it definitely took like a rock bottom mental health wise to have the confidence to be honest. And sometimes it feels like this persona I've created for myself because I am a very sensitive and affected person. And I think sometimes from the exterior, it might seem like I'm really strong or really hard, but really my sensitivity has been, and that vulnerability has been an inspiration to just be honest.
Yeah, no, that's fucking huge. And thanks for, thanks for continuing your honesty on the show. Cause it's not as easy as some people claim it is or whatever to like be yourself. It's really kind of a funny thing, because in some moments it is kind of easy and in others it's not. And I think that, a lot of people, at least in my realms that I sort of travel in, it's difficult for people to sort of say what they want to say or do what they want to do. So it's a big reason
Absolutely.
why you're here on the show. So, and I have no idea like what you're going to say to this. And I have no idea. And that's like part of the fun.
Yeah.
And the reason that, I feel like this is such a big question is, for a while you were married to a guy, right? And then at some point it just sort of changed over. And I don't know if you like explained or whatever, but you went from like being married for whatever to a guy, and then all of a sudden you were like had a girlfriend. And I think you've always identified as queer or gay or bi or whatever it is, which we're going to get to. But can you talk about that decision, right? But also like, I'm wondering if you can come at it from the point of empowerment, right? Because like, I feel like there's probably a shitload of people at some point in the future, right, listening or watching this, that are like, I'm not sure that my life is everything that I want it to be, but I don't know really how I feel or how to get to a place where I'm aware of my feelings.
Yeah. So I actually haven't spoken about this publicly yet. I definitely have a plethora of DMs asking me about what happened with my ex. And I'm glad that I'm speaking on it with you. So little backstory. I came out as lesbian when I was like 15 years old. I was actually outed to my entire school and faculty on a bulletin board of like the school's hottest hookups, which was quite an experience. And I don't think I realized how traumatic that was until I was an adult. At the time, I was like, woohoo, I'm with a hot older girl. Like, this is so cool. And that turned into me going to prom with my girlfriend at the time, which resulted in Westboro Baptist Church protesting my high school, which ended up being a national protest. So I was outed on a national level at 15. And even then received a lot of hate within and outside of the community. So I did come out as a lesbian initially, and then was basically bullied into saying I was bi, which I've never really been that attached to labels. So I just kind of ran with it. And I was like, whatever, that's fine. Mostly dated women through that point, and then ended up meeting my ex-husband in college, who is genuinely my best friend, and just kind of rolled with it. We were in an open marriage. So I was, we're really getting into it here. I was with women as well while I was married. We were together for 9 years, decided that, our lives really weren't lining up. It was a super amicable and lovely divorce, if you can say that. No fighting. We're still friends now, which I'm very, very fortunate and grateful. And that's not lost on me how rare of an experience that is. We still talk. We're still friends. But yeah, no, I absolutely identify as a lesbian. And I kind of chose not to speak on it because I to be completely honest, was really nervous because it kind of felt like I was coming out all over again. I, as an actor, have been portraying heterosexual relationships in commercials and short films and movies for a long time. So I kind of just dissociated from my identity and allowed other people to control my narrative, which was also a decision I had to make to change that. I think it shocked a lot of people when, all of a sudden my relationship is off of the internet. And if you Google my name, the first thing that pops up is who's Matison Card's husband, which is really difficult for me. But yeah, I was fortunate enough to meet a woman that I really connect with, and we hit it off right away. We U-hauled super hard. We actually signed our marriage license early. We had our wedding date planned in a couple weeks, but just with everything going on politically, we were nervous that we wouldn't have that opportunity. And so we kind of rushed it. But yeah, I've always identified as a lesbian. And honestly, I'm a little bit embarrassed and ashamed that I allowed people to say who I was for so long. And I think as someone who is femme passing, people just assume I'm bi, which I'm really not that femme, honestly. But with my modeling career and my acting career, I absolutely am in the characters that I play. So there's been this disconnect on who I am online and who I am in real life, not intentionally by me, just by the brands I'm working for, the narratives and the storylines that I portray as an actor. So thank you for asking me that so I can clarify for the people in the back, the people in my DMs that are like, where's the dude? And I'm like, well, he's still around just doing his thing. But yeah, no, I'm really happy. And there's been a weight lifted off my shoulders, just being honest about who I am. But I'm not going to lie, I have had a lot of backlash and a lot of people within the LGBTQ community that send a lot of hate, especially towards the bi community, which I think is also why I didn't reject the bisexual identity, because I feel for bisexual people on like a deep emotional level, that this whole like you have to pick a side or, invalidating someone's sexuality based on their past sexual partners. I think that's really fucked up. And yeah, I know a lot of people who were married to men and identify as lesbians. And I think it's probably confusing for some that I initially came out as lesbian and then was kind of put in this bisexual box. And I just didn't really care enough to correct people because it felt really heavy. And like what I said wouldn't matter anyway. So I just, and unfortunately got quiet in that zone. And so I haven't been perfect on being perfectly honest about who I am as a person, sexuality wise, but now that's definitely in the priority of my platform to be like, hey, yeah, I'm a lesbian and I have an ex-husband, and that doesn't invalidate my sexuality at all. And if you feel that way, then sucks to suck, I guess.
Well, fucking, first of all, you are such a fucking rock star. Like you have that rock star energy. That's always been, I think, a draw for me, someone who's like, I don't know, I consider myself kind of intuitive. So that's always been a thing that's like, how cool, right? And you do sort of embody that sort of rock energy, right? But I had no idea how you were going to answer that question. You could have said like anything, but I felt like it's a really good place for us to sort of start and set the table, right? And then we can just pull the fucking tablecloth out and have a blast. But I wanted to start there because I think, one, like I said before, I think there's so many people wearing false faces because they're forced to, right? And that's where you come in, because here I am seeing you like, okay, like she's not explaining how she got here, but she's here, right? And this is just me from your Instagram and whatever, and the things that I've seen. So how cool would it be to have her on the show, see if we can get a partial explanation, and then maybe some people out there in the audience in the future or whatever, they can feel better taking their fucking false face off,
Absolutely. I would love that. I mean, I completely agree with what you just said, and it is scary, but it's really empowering as well.
Yeah, fuck yeah. I would imagine. And like, to the dudes who are like blowing up the DMs, like, I mean, a troll's gonna troll, right? You fucking idiots. For real. So fucking girl. I can only imagine. Where's your husband? Where's your wedding ring? Or what?
I know. And in those moments, I'm like, I'm not gonna fuck you. So why does it matter? Like, is that what you're asking? Because like, that's what it sounds like you're asking.
Yeah, it's so it's one of these things, and I'm always harping on that on the show. It's just like, not only do dudes like that give dudes in general a bad name, but like kind of like all humans a bad name. And so it's like, can y'all stop, you motherfuckers? Like, just fucking go away, get fucking zapped out of existence, do something else. So yeah, no, I totally fucking, I can only imagine. Okay, so someone who's empowered, you feel as though you haven't been perfect, you've made mistakes. I mean, that's awesome too, I think. How has these realizations about yourself, being lesbian, having to deal with like, oh, people are putting me in this fucking box. I don't want to be in here. This is difficult, whatever. Now that you're sort of on the other side of it, and maybe it's too soon to even really sort of think about these things, but how do you think those sorts of life experiences that are so profound, how have they affected your art, right? Like you said, like as an actor, you're sort of just playing like the stereotypical, like, whatever chick, and it's not necessarily like whatever, but how do these experiences that, they're powerful, right? Like how do they affect how you show up, like as a musician, as an actor, as an artist?
Yeah, it affects everything I do, creatively, personally, emotionally. I would say it makes my creative process a little bit more difficult when it comes to portraying heteronormative relationships. But in my mind, I just kind of view it from a gay lens. And honestly, it's been affecting my writing more than anything in a really positive way. I've kind of been on and off with my writing relationship for a long time. I think that's rooted in my first girlfriend is actually a really famous slam poet. And so that always made me feel kind of inferior when writing poetry. I have been writing music for a long time, but my confidence doesn't exactly extend to my poetry writing. It makes me feel a little lame, honestly, which is kind of funny. It's just like doing open heart surgery on yourself in front of people. So I think when I decided to be like open and honest about my sexuality unapologetically, it really opened up a door for my writing and has allowed me to kind of hone my style and not feel embarrassed about the way I write, in the way that I don't feel embarrassed about who I am, if that makes sense. So I think just being honest about who you are is going to open up doors in every area of your life. And once that weight is lifted, it's a lot easier to show up. And so in most ways, my creative process has improved by me just being authentic. It is difficult as an actor because I'm obviously not playing myself, but that's part of the fun and the challenge. So with acting, I don't feel as affected. I think it's more in my writing that it's just completely busted down walls that I built for myself unconsciously. And so I don't think I realized how much I was holding back in putting like those emotions on a page and giving them a place to live externally from my own self, which is something my therapist was like, you need to do that because you can't just carry this around. Like you need to put it somewhere outside of your physical body. So being honest is just going to help in every area of life. And I'm really experiencing that in real time right now.
Okay. So, I'm wondering, like, do you ever find yourself sort of thinking or even like pulling from like when you were younger and you were just like realizing you might be into women, you might be a lesbian? Like, what was that like? Do you ever think about that? Is that a source of inspiration, fear?
It is a source of inspiration. I think I always knew I was gay. I think I just popped out the womb super gay. Like I probably came out like this. Yeah, no, I mean, this is a little weird, but I was like hooking up with women before I really knew what that was. I had a little neighbor girl that we used to play Boy Meets World, and she'd make me pretend to be Corey, to be the boy, which is kind of funny to look back on. But I went to a super Catholic school for 9 years, which is crazy. Like it's literally called Most Precious Blood.
Oh, wow.
So I think that was an interesting like indoctrination to go through as a young kid, but I always was questioning and kind of suspicious of what I was learning. And so I was with women long before I was with men. And then experience is pretty dark, but we're going to go there. Experience some like non-consensual stuff with dudes. And then I think I just ended up hooking up with men because it was easy and I wanted to erase that experience. And I've never really liked or been attracted to men. It was just the norm, especially growing up in a religious school, which is interesting because my family is not religious. We just didn't have a good public school in our district. So I ended up going to the private school because it had better grammar and education. So it definitely does inspire me. It's always been really natural. I don't think there was ever really an aha moment where I was like, I might be gay. I just always loved women, and like Meg from Hercules or like Kim Possible. Like I was always looking at the girls when my friends were looking at the boys, and I never really thought of it as wrong or different. And I think that's probably unique considering the fact that I was in an environment where that wasn't, appreciated or respected or viewed as anything other than something that's going to be a one-way ticket to hell. And so I don't really know where that came from. I think it's just how I am. And I think I had a lot more confidence and strength in that as a kid than I did as an adult. Like I said previously, as a teenager, I didn't really realize the trauma that I was experiencing being outed. I was just like, yeah, I'm gay, woohoo, this is great, I don't give a fuck. And then looking back, I'm like, wow, it's really traumatic and not my choice to have come out the way I did come out, like on a public level. My friends always knew. I was never like in the closet or quiet about it, but to be outed on a national level had a long-term effect on me as an adult that I didn't really realize until, quite frankly, in the last few years. I think I just kind of forgot about it. And yeah, I've been gay since the start.
Well, no, and well, first of all, right off the bat, to respond to everything you said, like, sorry you went through the fucking disgusting shit that you did, because that's so
Thank
fucked
you.
up. And I mean, come on, right? It's her stuff is because it not only like fills in your story, right? But it also, I think, I mean, the examples you're citing, like Kim Possible and like the whole thing with like the fucking Westboro Baptist Church psychos, right? Like all of that is so visceral and like real. And I think that it's really valuable, right, to anybody who is interested in any way or might, feel somewhat similar, be in a situation that's maybe nothing like yours, but feel like there's certain points where they connect on. So it's fucking amazing. And that's why we're asking sort of like the fucking painful, as it were, like we're digging a little bit in this section, which is,
We're digging, but I'm grateful to be digging. I think it's important.
Yeah, it's really important, especially with someone like you, because we need to like fill out the full picture as much as we can, right? I'm sure there'll still be a bit of mystery when we're done, but that's the charm. Okay, so I'm wondering, now that that's sort of set, can you talk about like what the last, I don't know, maybe like 5 or 6 years have felt like in terms of being someone who identifies as lesbian, and, all of the chaos and the political climate and people's dumbass opinions. Like, what has it felt like to be a lesbian from 2015 on?
Yeah, it's been a journey, both as like a queer woman, as a rape survivor, as someone who has had an abortion, which was probably one of the best decisions I ever made for my career. So just knowing that other people might not have access is gut wrenching, because I've been through it personally, and I'm very, very fortunate to live in a state where abortion rights are not only protected, but a common conversation that is had in my experience. I had an abortion when I was 20 years old. And when I went to the clinic, I had to get escorted in by security because there were people there protesting, who I found out later on are actually paid employees by a local church, that they're there every day, like throwing trash and rocks at me and like screaming some truly heinous things with signs with pictures of like stillbirths being portrayed as aborted babies, which is that's just completely false information. And it was a really, really traumatic experience, but also an empowering experience. And it just made me realize how privileged and fortunate I am to live in an area where I am able to have, access to medical care. And it just makes me think about people who don't have access. And obviously recently with Roe v. Wade being overturned, it dug up a lot. And I'm very fortunate in that the sexual assaults that I experienced didn't result in pregnancy. And I still had that option to, choose when and if I wanted to start a family. And so it really has made me think a lot recently, like, what if I got pregnant when I was raped and what that would have looked like and how much more traumatic of an experience that would have been. And I think of my friends who have, been pregnant and had miscarriages that did not release naturally and needed a medical abortion or they would die. I have friends who were, assaulted by family members and thinking how lucky they were that they didn't end up with a baby from incest in states where they would be forced to go to term. Like it's a really heavy and triggering conversation on multiple levels. And so it's been a really hard time. And I am a very liberal person, and I have been very outspoken about the long-term effects of a Trump presidency. And I think that, unfortunately, what some conservatives don't realize is how politics works, and that this isn't a liberal and conservative issue. It's a human rights issue. And that the Trump presidency wasn't just 4 years. It also had a huge impact on the Supreme Court, which positions in the Supreme Court are lifelong. It's not just like a 4 or 8 year term. And these decisions are being made by 9 people, which is the really scary part for me, is that the Supreme Court does not represent the majority of how our people feel. And so I think sometimes we feel really alone and like our country is attacking us. And, unfortunately, I think most people around us do support abortion rights. And the people who don't are probably not educated in what the term abortion means. It's not just people choosing to not be a mother, which that in and of itself should be a valid enough reason to get an abortion. But abortions are also for women who miscarry, for pregnancies that would result in both the baby and the mother dying. Like it is an umbrella term for a medical choice that politics should not be involved in. And I have some nurse friends who are travel nurses that work in other states that have to call judges before they can perform medical care. And just knowing that people who have their uterus rupture have to be filling up with blood for 8-9 hours while someone's on the phone with a lawyer to find out if they can give them medical care without receiving a felony or going to jail or losing their medical license or all of the above is vile. And it's been a really triggering time on a personal level, on a community level. I could honestly go on and on about it because I think there's just a severe lack of education. And I don't want to make this like a Democrat versus Republican thing. I just wish that people would really take the time to understand how politics works and vote in local elections, because you really do have an effect on your community and your area, and there are ways to get involved. But this is why there's such a problem when people are like, oh, I hate both candidates, I'm just not going to vote. Well, when you don't vote, then people get put into office that are going to stay in office until they die. And quite frankly, these old people are making decisions for young people's bodies, and that's a whole other issue. Like right now, it's most important to act on a local level and get involved and educate yourself. And living in Colorado is the perfect example of that. After our protests, Polis put into effect a lot of protections for abortion rights in our state. And so we're really fortunate that we have people in office that we voted for that support us and hear us on the community level of what we want and need. And that is possible on a federal level as well. It's a little more convoluted and difficult, but I think people don't understand that Roe v. Wade is also a privacy issue, which is going to extend into other areas. Like it's not going to stop at abortion rights. They've openly admitted that they're coming for contraception, for same-sex marriages, for interracial marriages, for lessening the laws on ages required for marriage. Like it is terrifying, and it feels like The Handmaid's Tale, to be honest with you. Like I don't mean to be an alarmist, but I think this is just the tipping point, and it's more crucial than ever that we stay educated and get involved.
Yeah, I mean, this fucking episode is you. Like we can do whatever the fuck you want. I'm just the host, right? That's the reason why I booked you on this thing, because
You're
it's
the
like
best.
we can make it Democrat versus Republican. We can talk about we can ditch all this and talk about fucking Cheez-Its if you want for the next 45 minutes or whatever. This episode is your episode. It is about you, how you feel, who you are, kind of thing. And so that's why I'm asking questions the way that I am and getting like, obviously thoughtful responses from you. It's a bizarre time to be a human, but it's like, I'm a heterosexual fucking white dude. So like I have it the best. Right. And I'm fucking stressed out and I'm fucking like angry as fuck. Right. So, I can only imagine what it's like to be gay or a woman or black or Mexican. It's like, fuck, so that's why I want to get your voice recorded on these things, because it's really important. So all of that being said, what do you think people can do, right? What is the number one like go to, like, okay, we need to do something about Roe v. Wade. We need to do something about LGBTQIA rights. We need to do something about like what can people do first and foremost?
Well, you can stay educated. I know it's really hard to keep up with current events and news because it's wildly depressing, but I think that pain and anger is really important to feel. I don't think we should, shut ourselves off to what that feels like, because that's a really important emotion to process. Voting in local elections is just as important as voting for the president. I feel like people are really, disempowered and fed up with how politics works in the United States, which is completely valid. However, to not be involved in politics is a privilege. And it's difficult for me because I understand that frustration and feeling like no matter what we do, it doesn't help because change is really slow. But it's really important to stay educated, to vote in local elections, as well as reaching out to your communities and putting your money where your mouth is. Like, one of the things that we always have control over is who we support financially, and really just doing your research on what companies have the same morals and values as you do. Like, for example, I don't eat Chick-fil-A because I know that money directly goes towards foundations that are super anti-LGBTQ. And so just little decisions like that really do have a larger impact than you think. And doing research and shopping from female-owned businesses, from trans businesses, from Black businesses, just really putting your money where your mouth is does have an effect. And, America is really basically just 4 corporations in a trench coat. So if you have the education, you can act accordingly. So really, just to sum it up, I would say educate yourself, vote in local elections as well as on a federal level, and do research on where you buy your products, because money really does talk. And if you defund these people, like, that has a direct impact, and that's something you can do every day as an individual that is empowering and does remind you that, okay, I do have some power here. I have a voice. I have the ability to put my money into communities that I support. And so that has helped me a lot. Just knowing, like, even where I buy my lip balm, like knowing I could buy from a female Black-owned business, that money goes directly into the pocket of someone who is deeply affected by this, even more so than myself as a white woman. Like, my privilege is not lost on me in this. And, it's easy to go to Target and buy just like a plain old chapstick, but taking that extra step puts money back in the hands of people most affected and keeps our community supported. So that's really where I start. And I by no means am an expert on this and how we can make a huge change, but I really think protesting is a huge part of that as well. Like, freedom of speech is something we are very lucky as Americans to have. And I think that is also under attack. So just, flexing your rights so they're not taken away is really important. And I think protesting is one of the most powerful ways we can do that. And it can be dangerous. And, I was at all of the protests for George Floyd back in 2020, and they got really violent, but it was really important. And, it's not easy being a fighter, but that doesn't mean that it's not really, really important work.
Yeah, I mean, it's critical, and I think someone like you is clearly more affected than I am. I mean, everyone's affected, but come on, like, women and people of color, like, who happen to be gay, maybe, or gay people, like, have it so much worse than people like myself. So that's why your voice coming from someone who's affected is the important one that I want to highlight. And like, yo, like I won't eat fucking Chick-fil-A either. And that those nuggets are fucking bomb as fuck. And I won't fucking touch them, guys. So here, I'm making my sacrifice. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, like I refuse.
No, for real though, those do have an effect.
Yeah, well, I mean, fuck Chick-fil-A. I fucking can't stand that shit. I have been known, it's been a long time, but I definitely have eaten an In-N-Out. I know In-N-Out's got a fucking weirdo thing going on too, so that sucks. But listen, like, I think what you said about voting in like tiny elections, right? Like that's the thing that people just don't really, even when they get it, they don't get that. Like your school board president might be a fucking nut job with like weirdo fucking shit in the basement that's like anti everything. And he might, you know, grow into the bigger villain at some point. And if you're not there to check it at the goddamn school board level, like, whoops, now he's fucking senator. And, you know, so like that's huge, but it's like people aren't excited. Like, you know, Ariana Grande is like running around, like registering like thousands of women to vote. And that's like, where's her help, man? Like, why are people not on the corner? Like, yo, do you need to let me register? It's insane to me that people do choose to do the right things in the face of like massive adversity, and they just don't get any backup, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a privilege to get lazy with these things. And for people who aren't affected on a daily basis, of course, they're not going to think about, you know, setting aside time to vote in local elections. I mean, it's difficult to vote. That is on purpose. You know, voting oppression is a very real thing. And again, I'm fortunate enough to live in a state where that's not as big of a deal here, but they're absolutely trying to silence female voices, you know, people of color, basically anyone who's not a white dude. Truthfully. And, you know, I think what white men need to realize is this affects you too, you know, especially with the abortion rights. Like, I know this is a female issue, but more so than that, it's a human rights issue. And no husband wants to see their wife die because they're not allowed to get an abortion from an ectopic pregnancy. You know, like this affects men as well. And it's really unfortunate that I have to speak to men on a female issue for everyone to understand. But like, this doesn't just affect women. Like men also have the right to choose when they have a family. And just because they're not the ones bearing the children doesn't mean that they won't see the effects of their partners not having access to basic medical care. So it affects everyone. And I think until people realize that this is a human rights issue, unfortunately, people who aren't affected on a daily basis probably won't get involved, which is a privilege. And you know, I understand that voting is frustrating. I understand that sometimes it feels like choosing between two lesser evils. You know, it is a frustrating system, and I don't necessarily believe in the system. However, you have to make change within the system that you have. And that is a hard pill to swallow sometimes because it sucks and it feels really frustrating and shitty, for lack of a better term. But that doesn't mean that we can just, you know, lay back and let it happen. That's exactly what they want to happen.
Yeah, I mean they're counting on that shit. And like, you know, as far as like a men sort of it goes back to what we talked about in the beginning of the show is like, you know, dudes in your fucking DMs like, well, what's up? Are you married? I don't see a ring, and like whatever, right? Like the more like I think, and this is what drives me nuts, is like a society is only as good as how it treats not only its members, but like how it treats its women, man. And like the sooner y'all shut the fuck up and start being kind and whatever, the better everything gets for everyone. The better we can move on to like the next big thing that really matters. And that's why I just don't get like, you know, the fucking the control, the fear of like paying women the same. And like, dude, I mean, I could go on forever, right? And it's like, I'm so it's part of the reason why I started this show, because I wanted to do, you know, a show called Sex Party. That's sure, like we get slutty and we do all the things like I say fucking in almost every episode now, but like it's about something.
I love slutty women.
Yes. It's about something much more, right? Right? Like
Yeah.
It's about
It is.
everything, and we can talk about whatever we want because it all falls under that same umbrella. Slutty women are make the world go around, right? Like, come the fuck on, guys. Get with the program, dude.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so it totally makes sense. There is a through line from some dumbass in your DM all the way to like the senator who's, you know, blocking fucking pro-choice rights and whatever.
Yeah. Well, and it's difficult too, because here's the thing. If you don't want an abortion, don't get one. If you don't support gay marriage, don't get gay married. Like, church and state are separate for a reason, and that's under attack, which is terrifying, truly, because we are not a Christian nationalist country. Okay, there is democracy here, supposedly, right? So you're allowed to have your opinions. And honestly, if the Supreme Court was coming for religious freedom, I would support all of these people who believe stuff that I do not believe on a personal level, because it is their right to believe what they want, as long as they're not imposing those beliefs on other people. Like, I'm not Christian, but if you want to be Christian, good for you. That's great. You should have the ability to do that. You should be allowed to be Muslim, Jewish, etc., etc. Like, it's not like we're trying to take away your religious freedom. We're trying to have the exact same freedom. And there is no room for religion in politics in emergency medical situations. That results in people dying. Truly, like, that's what it is. And the honest truth is that abortions aren't going anywhere. It's just safe abortions. And, you know, the mistresses of politicians will always have access to abortions. Rich white women will always have access to abortions. This isn't going to eliminate abortions, just like, you know, these anti-drug campaigns aren't erasing drugs. Like, that's not how it works. And people deserve the right to choose.
Are you still doing, like, do you still strip? Do you still do like the OnlyFans thing?
Yeah, so I am a stripper, and I definitely fall under the category of sex workers. It's kind of an umbrella term, which there's a lot of range in what people do, and I support all of it. Right now, I'm just stripping, dancing. It's really provided a lot of financial opportunity, and as an actor, you're required to audition with like 2 hours notice, or you have to be on set tomorrow or fly to this place. And so the ability to control my own schedule and make really good money whenever I need to has been really beneficial for me personally. And to kind of connect what we were talking about, sex workers have never really had bodily autonomy. So this is, you know, the public seeing this on a larger scale of what sex workers have always been going through. And I really consider myself a baby stripper. I've only been dancing for about a year and a half. And so I'm probably not the best person to speak on sex worker rights, just because there are women who are, honestly, just people in general, who are way more educated on that than I am. But from what I've seen and from what I've heard from people who are, you know, veterans in that world, they've been screaming this from the rooftops for years and years and years, and nobody paid attention. Just kind of like how, you know, we're talking about COVID as a pandemic. Well, the HIV was a pandemic as well, but nobody cared because it wasn't affecting straight white people, right? So because it was affecting a marginalized group, it wasn't taken as seriously or spoken about. And I think that's really very triggering for sex workers right now, because they already don't have support through their workplaces or bodily autonomy or, you know, protection. And so having this be re-triggered through abortions, it's like a double whammy for sex workers, really.
Yeah, it's like a fucking triple whammy. It's fucking gross, man. Again, like, you don't want like sex work, don't fucking participate, dum-dum. You know, like, come the fuck on.
Exactly. And it's just kind of like supply and demand too, because it's funny, all these people who are like up in arms about sex workers are also people who are addicted to watching porn, right? So if it's dissociated or disconnected from an individual, they're fine supporting it. But then once they know the exact person who's a dancer, or, you know, who does camgirling or whatever it is, then they have a problem with it. Well, here's the thing about sex work is it provides financial stability for women who, for people in general, I don't mean to just say women, but in my experience, mostly women and non-binary people are the people I know personally in this industry. These are single mothers. These are women completing nursing degrees, people who have escaped abusive partners, some of the strongest women I've ever met in my entire life. And sex work has allowed them to have financial autonomy and the ability to rebuild their life. And not everybody is dealt the same cards. And for some people, that is their only option. And I don't think that that should be vilified at all. I mean, people say, oh, you're selling your body. Tell me how a construction worker isn't selling their body, injuring their rotator cuff at work for a fraction of what we make. Most of the women I work with make more than teachers, lawyers, doctors. Like, it is a very, very lucrative and, yes, high risk environment. However, most work is high risk. And for some people, those risks are worth it because of the freedom that it allows.
Yeah, and like the thing that really gets me is, you know, being a fucking stripper or having an OnlyFans or, you know, sexting with someone for money or being a prostitute. These are things that are really fucking difficult to do, right? And you want to talk to some fucking smart, tough people that have survived that. There you go. They doesn't get any smarter or tougher than people in those professions, because you have to have your fucking head on a swivel constantly. You're either going to get arrested or killed. You know, like it's just insane to me. And it's something that's literally older than money. You know, like.
Yeah, it's like the original job. Like, people like to pretend that like sex work or even being gay is like a new thing, that, oh, the youth is so messed up, whatever. It's older than, like you said, everything. Like, it's always been around. It will always be around. I think sex workers just want it to be safe and protected, and, you know, to even have like health insurance, or, you know, like these basic things that sex workers don't have. And I have to be honest with you, like, the community that I have developed within my strip club is one of the most supportive and kind, understanding, intelligent groups of women that I've ever met in my life. And sometimes when I'm having a bad day, I'll go to work just to see my girls, because they understand and you don't have to explain anything. They're just like, yeah, no, I get it. Like, the women in strip clubs are so strong and intelligent and beautiful and capable and making shit happen for their families, for their kids, for themselves. Like I said, it's women putting themselves through medical school that grew up incredibly poor. It's people surviving abusive situations, supporting their children. Like, these women are taking back a power that's been stolen from them. And it is very empowering to kind of flip the narrative and make money off of something that, you know, we're sexualized 24/7 anyway. Making money off of it, you might think that that's messed up, but there is an empowering element to get paid for something that's going to happen to you anyways.
Yeah, it's like literal madness. It's like you can't really you can't really like figure like what the fuck is happening. Like there's no explanation, there's no fucking exit. There's none of that. None of it makes sense. It's again like wrapped up in this really terrible like programming. That's what to me that's what it boils down to. And control, obviously. Okay, so moving into the last piece of the interview, two things. One, to close out this section, can you sort of give some advice? And I kind of do this with all my guests, but like personal advice, like maybe there's some little Matisons out there that are confused about what's going on in their life. And maybe there's not. Maybe there's a fucking Jerry, you know, who needs to fucking have some inspiration. But from your lived experience, can you sort of like maybe like dig deep a little bit, not to be corny, and like give some real advice on um how to be okay with being messy, but also like how do they find their empowerment? How do they like push forward regardless of all the haters and shit like that and people like, you know, trying to harm them?
Yeah. Well, no matter what you do, you're never going to please everybody. So if you're on the path to avoiding haters, it doesn't exist. So I think once I realized that, just being yourself and not being scared to take up space. You're going to piss people off regardless, and that can't determine how you act, what you say, what you do. It's just really important to be yourself. There's only one you. And I think if I would have realized that at a younger age, or rather in this little chapter where I kind of got lax on that, it's so helpful in every area of life to just show up with authenticity, whatever that looks like for you, whether you're gay, straight, female, non-binary, man, whatever. None of that matters in this zone of just genuinely being yourself and coming from an informed space. I think education is one of the most powerful tools we have, which is why, you know, it's scary that school boards are being attacked on what they can teach and stuff. Like, it really is up to us to learn on our own. I wasn't taught about politics in school. I mean, hell, I wasn't even taught how to do my own taxes. I had to provide that information for myself. So really just taking ownership of your ability to get educated. And I think just, owning your truth and being honest about your experiences and being loud and kind of having this like fuck it mentality, whether that comes from a place of like living out of spite or doing better or like the post breakup glow, that kind of thing. Whatever it is that keeps your fire going, keep your fire going and feel your emotions. Don't suppress it. Like, it is really hard to be alive right now, but just dissociating and numbing that out isn't going to help. Just being yourself is so important because the world needs you as you, not like showing up as somebody else or, like a half-assed watered down version. Just take up space.
Yeah, no, that's fucking amazing advice. And I thank you for giving it, because that's fucking rad, man. Like that's where it's at. People need to fucking. I think sometimes like it's good to hear that from someone who's been through it, So I appreciate it a lot.
It is, and sometimes it feels like you need external permission to do things. So if that's the case, I feel like that sometimes too. Like, this is your permission to take up space and be yourself. Like, you will literally never please everyone. It's impossible. It's like you can conform as much as possible and people please and try to look like every other girl on Instagram, get all the things. You're still not going to make everybody happy. And you can't come from a place of trying to impress everyone. You need to impress yourself. And I'm glad that you said, like, if there are any little Madisons out there, because I think little Madison would be really proud of me right now, which is a really good feeling. And I think if you can make your, 6-year-old, 10-year-old self proud, then you're on the right path.
Yeah, no, that's giant. I mean, and some people will say that, like, you'll hear that phrase like, oh, little or 10-year-old Dustin or whatever. But I think it's something that we don't think about enough.
Mm-hmm.
It's like no one feels good enough. And so you kind of have to go back and earlier I asked you about like, what did it feel like to be, young and gay and like whatever, because it is important, I think. And as I'm getting older, right, I have a birthday coming up. So it's like now I'm, you do the reflecting thing, right? But this year feels different. So it's like, I really wanted to get you sort of talking about that. And it worked out really well, because I think it's super powerful. Okay. So final segment. This one's called The Burner. It's like 10 to 12 questions. If I ask them all, they're like, I don't know, like some are more intense, but they're mainly just like fun. We sort of rapid fire it. Like, you don't have to like give whatever, but we sort of answer it. And then like, maybe there's a little back and forth that we move on to the next one quickly. So if you want to do it, we can, or you can be like, okay, cool. Awesome.
I love it.
Okay. Question 1, name something you wish men would stop doing.
Oh, I was going to make a really bad joke and say breathing, but that's not what I feel. Making everything about themselves.
Okay. Name something you wish women would stop doing.
Staying silent.
Love that answer. Name something you wish you would stop doing.
Being scared to be seen.
Amazing. Favorite guilty pleasure. It doesn't have to be sexual. It can be a fucking, song or a piece of fucking cheese.
Watching SpongeBob.
Amazing. Have you ever been to a sex party in real life?
Yes.
Okay. And see, like, I have follow-ups, right? But we're not going to go there because it's The Burner. Backstreet Boys or NSYNC?
Oh, farts.
Yeah, it's tough.
That is so fucking tough. Backstreet Boys.
Okay. Spice Girls or the Pussycat Dolls?
Oh my God, my gay awakenings. Fuck, Spice Girls. Although the Pussycat Doll music video where they're dancing on the chairs in the fire, I was like, whoa, my heart is pounding.
Yeah, for sure. Name a person, alive or dead. The trick or the catch is like, you can be with this person, you can have sex with this person if you wish. They're kind of yours, consensually, obviously, but you only get to spend 24 hours, and then they go back to whatever realm they were in.
That is such a good question. Valley Myers, she's an Australian painter that I'm obsessed with. You should check her out.
I will. I will. Crazy story from the strip club. Can be anything. Doesn't matter.
There are so many. Recently I had someone try to hold hands with my foot.
Okay.
Like interlace their fingers between my toes.
I have follow-ups. Favorite comfort movie or television show?
White Chicks.
Okay. Flaming hot or probably not? Like, are you a fan of like the flaming hot snacks and shit?
Flaming
or
hot,
no?
everything. Spicy everything.
Amazing. Mm-hmm. Amazing. Best kind of music to bang to?
To bang to? I don't really have sex to music. I like to hear my partner's moan in my ear.
You know, that seems to be a really common answer, to be honest.
Yeah, but like, I don't know. If I was like fucked up and probably some heavy metal, that's probably not an answer that you get often, but something raging.
Yeah, no. That fits with your personality, I think. Okay, final question.
Okay.
Say something to one of your exes. It doesn't have to, we don't have to know who. It can be whatever you want. The microphone is yours.
Say something to one of my exes?
Mm-hmm.
How dare you turn me into a poem?
Okay. Amazing. Matison Card. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Where can people find you?
Yeah, so all of my social media across the board is Matison Card. It's Matison with a T because my parents did the whole basic white girl thing where they give me a really common name but spell it wrong thing. So yeah, Matison Card. Check it out. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, amazing. All the things.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here. I would love to have you back, so we'll have to work that out at some point.
I would love that. We could do a follow-up.
Yes. For sure.
You can ask me more about weird stories in the strip club because I have so many popping in my head right now.
Well, definitely. All of those things I couldn't follow up on will be followed up in the next one. So
okay.
Amazing. Okay. We'll talk soon. Thank you so much.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Hey, big thanks to Matison Card for being my guest on the show this week, but also thank you for being part of episode 30. Go check out Matison on Instagram. All of her content and stuff is there. She just had a film go over to Amazon Prime, Safe House 1618. So check that out. Look, it's been 30 episodes. I'm incredibly grateful. Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. If you're digging it, you get where this is going, right? If you're digging it and you're listening on Apple and Spotify and all those other platforms like that, you can subscribe to the show. You can leave a rating. You can leave a review. You can tell your friends, yo, there's the show. This host is kind of fucking silly, talks about sex, relationships, all of the things. You should listen. You should watch. If you are watching on YouTube, hello, how are you doing? If you're watching on YouTube, you can like the video, you can subscribe to the channel, you can leave a comment. These things fucking help. I appreciate all of them. You don't have to do shit. But if you do, I love you. Appreciate it very, very much. It's been 30 episodes. I am in the midst of recording 30 more. Reach out in the DMs. Love you guys. Thank you very much. And I can't wait to see you back here next week.
Thanks for listening. The party continues next week. Click subscribe and let's make this a regular thing. Follow the show on Instagram and Twitter @SexPartyFM. Follow Dustin @Dustin Rybka.